Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for coming again for this session. I feel very encouraged to share with you something which is very close to my heart. And I must confess that yesterday I was very uncomfortable but very excited during the debate. Because I was uncomfortable because I never debate. Anybody says anything, I say, yes, you are right. we have been trained like that, we've been trained to accept, especially from devotees like Naveen Krishna Prabhu and others who were there in the panel. So it was nice. And what I realized last night when I went back to my room, I was so happy to see that you people have this ability to deal with the most serious issues with so much humor. And sometimes while preaching, I come across, I've seen, we deal with most trivial issues with so much gravity and seriousness. So I felt a strong sense of belonging, and I was very happy. Thank you very much for that. And I hope it's not there today. So thank you very much. So we are going to discuss today on how, yesterday remember we ended with that 4 quadrants. But I'm sure many of you must have this question on how we could move to quadrant 3. How do we add Krishna element, Krishna principle in our lives? Alright? So what is quadrant 2? What happens in quadrant 2? Who would like to answer? Nobody. What is quadrant 2 state? Struggle, but no remembrance of Krishna. That is quadrant 2. And quadrant 3 is? There is struggle, and there's also dependence on Krishna. There is remembrance of Krishna. So we are going to discuss how we can live in quadrant 3. Just imagine our lives would be so blissful, isn't it? Just imagine you're always with Krishna. Just like I gave the example of Aryaman yesterday, that boy. I was so happy to see him that time in school. I realized that this boy is so Krishna conscious. He may not have pure aspirations, he may not be asking for pure devotional service, but he's remembering Krishna. So, we will discuss that, and especially this meditation word is very popular, and everybody is talking about mindfulness. But in Krishna consciousness, we understand that meditation is not an art, it is about the heart. And because we are practicing Bhakti Yoga, and my 25 years of daily practice has convinced me that if we claim ourselves to be Bhakti yogis, we can't only rely on our intellect and on logic. We need to also activate our emotions. And what I'll be sharing with you today is what I have experienced over 25 years of practice. And this is based on a culture of hearing and chanting and also seva. I'm sorry, I'm just not able to handle this. Yeah, no, I got it. I need some time. Yeah, now I'm fine. So most people, especially the non-bhakti, non-Krishna conscious devotee people, practitioners of so-called different spirituality, they will talk about meditation as an activity of the mind. Whereas if you are a Krishna conscious practitioner, definitely it's about the mind, but ultimately it boils down to the heart. That is the point I want to make in today's class. See, for more details, you can read a book by His Holiness Devamrit Swami Maharaj. It's a beautiful book called Bhakti Bhava, Cultivating Emotions for Krishna. And yesterday when Maharaj was speaking, an amazing point, how a Kanishta sees scriptures through his emotions. Whereas a Madhyamadhikari examines his emotions, he sees his emotions through the eyes of scriptures. So how we can purify our emotions, how we can rise to the Madhyama platform, So when I'm talking about the heart of meditation, I'm not talking about obviously the biological heart that pumps blood, but we're talking about emotions, purified emotions. And intuitively, all of us know that there is a space beyond the mind. We all know it intuitively. There is something beyond the mind also. And real meditation is to actually transcend the mind. And I appeal, therefore, to your heart, open up your heart and see how we could live in quadrant 3 and make it a possibility. So now you come to you see that whether you're a brahmachari or a grihastha or a sannyasi, everybody has to deal with issues. Everybody goes through challenges. And in Bhakti Yoga, the most important principle is to remember Krishna. How many of you have done yoga? At least flirted with yoga for some time. Yes? So what is the most important thing you do in yoga when you are doing yoga asanas? Breathing. So if you just lie down on your yoga mat and just simply keep breathing, is it enough? So along with breathing, what do you also do? Stretch. So both things are needed in yoga, right? We stretch and we also breathe. I remember once when I wanted to do yoga, because I was sleeping 6 hours, so I thought if I do yoga, I can reduce my sleep and do more seva. So I got excited. So a yoga teacher came to our temple to teach the brahmacharis. So I started learning asanas from him. And then I realized I'm sleeping 8 to 9 hours. So I was wondering what's going wrong. So I told him this problem. So he said, let me see how you do your asanas. So then he saw me doing asanas and then he said, Prabhu, you are doing it all wrong. You are stretching all right, but you are holding your breath. He said, you are supposed to breathe normally. Inhale and exhale. Sukham steryam asanam. Just relax. Breathe, inhale and exhale. So then I realized at that moment of time that yes, this is how Bhakti Yoga is also practiced. Just like in yoga, there are two things. You have to stretch and you also have to breathe normally. So in Bhakti Yoga, which is also yoga, connection with the divine, there are two principles. One is seva. We need to do seva. We need to stretch ourselves. But at the same time, we also need to remember Krishna. If we do a lot of seva and don't offer it to Krishna and don't remember Krishna, then it becomes a material activity. And you can't say, okay, I'll remember Krishna. I'll sit and remember Krishna. Like the Goswamis of Vrindavan, they could do Manasi seva. And yesterday I was discussing with Maharaj about different acharyas. Like Shamanand Pandit. Srinivas Acharya would sit and he would enter a meditative trance. For 7 days and 7 nights, he would be searching for Radharani's besar. He would be absorbed in meditation. And there would be external symptoms on his body. That was the extent of his intense remembrance of Krishna. So we are not on that level. If you sit down and say, I'll remember Krishna, what will happen? Mind will go everywhere else except Krishna. So just like in yoga, we do both stretching of our body and also breathing. Similarly, in Bhakti Yoga, we remember Krishna and we also do services, different services. And therefore, we have seen that whether you are grihastha, sannyasis, brahmacharis, anyone who is not remembering Krishna or not doing enough seva will always have issues. And human beings, we have heard many times from childhood, human beings are rational animals. Have you heard this? We are supposed to be rational. But actually, Bhaktivinoda Goswami Maharaj was once saying that rationality is only tip of the iceberg. Human beings are actually emotional animals. And all that rationality we use simply to justify our emotions. If you don't like someone, then you'll have all logic to explain how that person is nasty. So therefore, it's important that we learn how to purify our emotions, how to awaken true feelings for Krishna. And this is a high-class meditation. In fact, this is our USP. In Hare Krishna movement, it's all about developing loving feelings for Krishna and also serving Him. And my experience with the congregation, because I'm doing congregation preaching since last 12, 13 years. Before that, I was doing youth preaching. My experience is everybody is a what we call a Dukhi Atma. You know, Dukhi Atma means suffering soul. Everybody is suffering. And no one is spared. Shucha Dharma Prabhu and I would often discuss this. No one is spared. We all have to go through this. And mind, as long as we have this mind, we'll always suffer. Unless we are, of course, advanced spiritually. There is a movie, no? Man to pagal hai. Something, no, dil to sorry. They could make a movie called Man to pagal hai. So in Hindi we have a saying, I'll translate it in English. It says, Man khush hai, to ek boond bhi barsat hai. If your mind is happy, even a drop of water can be rain. मन खुश है तो एक बूंद भी बरसात है, दुखी मन के आगे समुंदर की भी क्या औकात है. And if you have a sad mind, then even an ocean can't satisfy you. So mind is deadly, and we need meditation. We need to learn the science, the art of meditation, so that we can go beyond the mind. That's the whole point of Krishna consciousness. And when I'm talking about meditation, we're not talking about rituals. We're not talking about the time pass kind of meditation. If you do it the right way, hear from the right people, and I'm sure we'll be able to experience deep fulfillment in Krishna conscious practices. I'm just struggling with the mouse. Can someone help me? I'm not able to sense it. Yeah. Okay. So now we are going to discuss this theme of what and why of meditation. Now this is living in the third quadrant is more important, understanding what is it, than how. I know many of you after yesterday's class may be thinking, okay, how do we live in quadrant 3? But I want to repeat and emphasize that how is very personal. But if you understand what and why of it, you will discover your own answers. And because there is one very famous Babaji who has given a lot of answers on how to do meditation. You know who is that Babaji? Google Baba. So if you go to Google and if you search how to do meditation, you will get at least 1 million different websites, links. But you will see that still people are not happy and still people are not able to practice meditation because that how is not inspiring if the why and what is not clear. So, if you keep asking Prabhu how to do meditation and how do we do it, it doesn't last. So we'll explore more on how we can do, what is meditation, and especially nowadays we are in a situation where we are so much trapped by the internet, the social media, the smartphones. And meditation requires, Patanjali's Yoga Sutra says, it requires us to be in a state of ekagrata, a state of at peace with ourselves. But we are so restless, we want to be stimulated, Constantly we need that dopamine kick. So therefore, meditation becomes a challenge. And that obsession, we're today obsessed with clarity. We want clarity. I want answers. I want solutions. So meditation, a very important element of living in quadrant 3 is letting go the desire to have full control of your life. And we are so, we are so used to nowadays having clarity. We want answers for everything. We have a lot of difficulty living with uncertainty. We are very much in the bottom of the ladder of abstraction. Our vision is very focused. Just like a cow is busy eating grass, we can't see beyond. We can't come to terms with abstract terms. And therefore, meditation is very difficult. Connecting with Krishna is very difficult now because we are unable to accept uncertainty or not having answers for everything. And we are trapped by the social media. Like one young boy, he met an elderly man in the street and he said, I've seen you somewhere. Are you on Instagram? No. Are you on Facebook? No. Are you on WhatsApp, Snapchat? No, no. Then where have I seen you? So that elderly man said, son, I've been your neighbor for the last 5 years. So our life has become so integrated with the digital technology now that we have got disconnected from ourselves. Totally disconnected. And just like if you love someone and that person has gone very far away, how do you stay in touch with them? You may call them, you may make a video call. You ensure that you are in touch with them, right? So simple question you need to ask yourself, are you in touch with yourself? Are you in touch with yourself? Do you feel connected? Like I'll tell you one. I have got many examples. I'll tell you one example. One devotee who started a business, was doing well, and then suddenly losses, relationships turned bad. His wife left him. A lot of things happened with his life, and then he shared an interesting realization after 2 years. He said, "Prabhu," and when he was telling me about all his problems, I thought he's like Avanti Brahman. The Bhagavatam gives the story of Avanti Brahman who lost everything, and he surrendered to Krishna, and he was seeing it all as mercy of Krishna. So I was thinking, wow, he's becoming like Avanti Brahman. Things are going out of his control and he's just, Krishna is forcing him to enter quadrant 4 and he's always been in quadrant 3. I was thinking like that as he was telling me all his problems. And then suddenly he said something very interesting. He said, Prabhu, I observed something that when things started going bad for me, I observed that during the same period, I was more involved and absorbed in social media. And my usage of smartphone was also increasing as my life was beset with problems. I was constantly watching movies and constantly, I couldn't just give up my smartphone. And then he said, he got a realization that I am trying to escape from my problems. And eventually, this is what happens with many sincere devotees, that we get disconnected from ourselves, we get disconnected from Krishna because of this smartphone. Earlier, you had no choice but to either tolerate the problem or talk to devotees, reveal your heart, get help, right? But now you could be in your own shell, you could be just with your smartphone. So therefore, it is important that we now enter this topic, what exactly is living in heart space or quadrant 3. Now, before we define a heart space or a home state or a quadrant 3 state, these are all synonyms I'm using. Before we understand this, we need to know one small story which I had heard from Gaur Gopal Prabhu, which is very, very striking, which makes the point very clear. Once a man approached a sadhu and said, I am in a lot of anxiety, I have a lot of tension. I have a lot of tension in life. He said, earlier I had some tension in life. Now I have some life in tension. So lot of anxiety. My life is beset with anxiety. So the sadhu told him, okay, get me a handful of salt. So he brought salt. So then the sadhu had a cup of water. He said, put this salt in. And then he mixed it and then he gave it to drink. So when the man drank that glass of salt water, he immediately puked. He couldn't drink it. So then the sadhu told him, okay, get me another handful of salt. So he again brought salt. And this time the sadhu took him to a nearby lake and told him to put that salt in the lake. And then the sadhu said, okay, now drink this. So now when he drank, the water was sweet. So the sadhu said, so you have a choice now. You want to make your heart like a lake, or you want to remain like a small glass? What do you want? So many of us, we live with a very constricted internal world, very narrow. So if we really want to be happy, because the problems, all of us are the same salt-like problems. All of us. Now, the choice is ours whether to make our heart into an expanded, beautiful lake or let it remain a small glass. And Krishna consciousness is designed to expand the heart. Krishna consciousness is a whole process of how we could become more full, more happy. So simple words. So in simple words, what is quadrant 3? Oh, not this one. Okay. Okay, sorry. I was just looking at this screen. Okay. So this is the quadrant 3. In simple words, it's an expansion and enlargement of the heart. Ability to see abundance, benedictions, grace in life. How much are you able to see your life as filled with benedictions? If you can do that, you are living in quadrant 3. Very simple. Okay, I'll give a simple example, simple exercise we could do now. And you can see the difference. Now, I'm not very good in interactive exercises, but I'll just share this. Now, the person next to you, you can make him as a partner. And we'll just do this for 2 minutes. Okay, is it okay? So, one of you will be A and the other will be B. Okay, all of you have a partner? Yes? Everybody? Simple exercise. Now, the person who is A will tell B about at least 5 to 10 things that you are really, really grateful for. Really grateful for in life. So, and then once a minute is over, then I'll ring the bell or I'll play the kartal, and then B can tell A, and you'll see the big difference here, what happens. This is very simple exercise, but you'll see how the heart gets expanded. Okay, we'll start now. Hare Krishna. So this is a simple exercise where we could do it every day. Even if you are alone, you could do this on a journal. And you will see your heart expanding. You will see that you are entering a quadrant 3 space. So it's not some rocket science technology, it's simple. In fact, there is one exercise I do. I have done this in our Bombay program. This is a 1 week experiment. You could try this, and I'll be grateful if you would share your realizations on this. This is an excellent experiment you can do and get conviction that living in quadrant 3 is very easy and very effective. And this experiment is, you on a paper you write down what you really want in life. It could be the most materialistic desire, no problem. Just write whatever you really want in life. And take some time, maybe 20 minutes, to write down your innermost desires that you really want in life. Once you've written that, keep it away for 1 week. Don't look at it. And then for the next 1 week, every day write a gratitude journal. Write about people or things that you're really thankful for. And now you may say, but gratitude also becomes boring. Like, I can't thank my parents and I can't thank with feeling every time. So I practice what is called as fresh gratitude, which means, what is it that I'm really grateful for in the last 24 hours? What has happened in the last 24 hours for which I'm really grateful? So that keeps your gratitude fresh and your intelligence and mind alert and awake, because you're constantly looking for the right things. So then what happens? 1 week of a fresh gratitude journal. So for 10 minutes you write. After 1 week, then you go back to the first question. Answer that same question which you had answered 1 week ago. And what is that question? What is it I really want in life? What are my innermost desires? You write that answer. And after you write that answer, compare that answer with the answer you wrote 1 week ago. And you will see yourself how you have evolved. You will see your heart has changed. This is for real. You don't need somebody else to tell you that you're advancing. You will see abundance grow in your heart. There are many such journal exercises which maybe on another occasion we could discuss. But the point is this, that there's a lot of energy shift that happens when we do some simple things like appreciation, gratitude, if you remember and if you appreciate someone for something, I'll tell you nowadays, if you simply remember a person's name, a person feels loved. Like I was going for I used to go to the national park for walking, morning walk, which is in Mumbai, and I didn't know that there are leopards in that forest. So I used to go early morning at 4:30. And then one day, one devotee told me, Prabhu, you should take a stick with you. There are leopards there. So then I forgot about what he had told me. And then again I went after a few days. And then suddenly I remembered what this devotee had told me, there are leopards. And then fear gripped me. I became very scared. And I forgot all the philosophy and, I just... and it was dark. And then then some birds started flying, and then some the bushes started, shaking. So I thought some leopard is somewhere nearby. My mind went everywhere. And then I met one tribal, one man who stays there. I ran up to him, I needed some relief. So I said, are there leopards here? And he looked at me and he said, I'm not deaf, I can hear you. Why are you shouting? And I was sweating. It was winter time, January. And he looked at me and then he said, yeah, there are leopards, but you don't have to worry. They won't do anything to you. I said, what? Why? He said, because you are Maharaj, no? You are because in India they call saffron-clad people as Maharaj and sannyasis. Sadhus, leopard doesn't do anything to sadhus. I said, what do you mean? So he said, no, you don't know. Leopards are... they see red or saffron, they think it's fire. So they run away from that. But if you're in the ocean, then you should be careful of red, because the sharks will see it as blood and they will come. So he gave me some big wisdom. So I was like, okay, but that wasn't... I wanted to really run away from that forest, and then I was with him till sun rose. And then other morning walkers came. And just I casually asked him, what is his name? Casually. And he said his name is Gopi. Now, Gopi is not a name you would find amongst men, right? Generally, we would think Gopi is a feminine name. Generally, you would think. So that name struck me. I said, his name is Gopi. And then somehow that name stuck. And then I didn't see him for the next 8-9 years in that forest, because it's a huge forest. And he's one of the men there. And after 8 years, one day I saw him. And I said, Gopi! And he looked at me and he just started crying. He said, you remember me? And I said, yes, 7-8 years ago we spoke. And then he was so happy, just because I remembered his name. Then he took me to a small hut and then he was feeding me. I, of course, didn't take the food that he offered, but he was he was so hospitable, so loving. He said, I'm in this forest. I've been working here for 30 years. I'm one of the tribals here. I do a lot of seva. And nobody gives me, nobody talks to me, nobody looks at me, nobody, what to speak of remembering my name. And I didn't have the heart to tell him that I remember your name, not because, I'm some mistake. I remember because, name is very strange. So, so I was kind with him, but then I realized that energy shift, what I'm talking about, that appreciation, and he became happy. And I became so happy that, and then every time I would go to the forest, he would see me, he would give me some fruits. So you see the whole energy changing when we appreciate others, when we express gratitude. Like I have this biomagnetic belt. The one who sold it to me, he did an experiment with me. He told me to stand straight, and then he took his hand and he pushed me, and I just completely lost my balance. And then he told me, okay, now put this biomagnetic belt on. So I put it. And then again he pushed me very hard, and I was straight. So I could immediately see, wow, it works. So I got faith. So then I purchased it. You know what I'm saying? So when we see something happen, then our faith will increase. So I'm just telling you this. Try this 1 week experiment and see. In fact, now only you will see that your heart is expanding when you're appreciating someone, when you are grateful. So quadrant 3 is a reality. And it's possible that we all can live in this all the time. It's possible. At least you can begin your day. I spend my first 2 hours in the morning alone. And you may say, but Sankirtan movement, yes, I come for Mangalarti, I do all of that, but still, I need that time to connect with this principle. Otherwise, everything becomes external, everything becomes a ritual. We have in our temple morning program, we have a register, we have to come and sign P before fire before the Mangalarti. So sometimes it becomes so mechanical and ritualistic. And we're standing in front of the deities and Mangalarti is going on. Because see, we are living there. See, if you're coming to temple once in a week, you may find it ecstatic. But if you're living in the temple, you're standing in front of the deities and Mangalarti is very boring sometimes. Just like, it's a ritual. And then one day, one devotee came to our temple with a video camera and he was making a film on our temple. And I was standing like this in the Mangalarti and suddenly I saw him in front of me, the camera, and suddenly I became alert. Hare Krishna. So this happens all the time. And then I realized, okay, this camera was on, so I became conscious. Just imagine if I understand even Krishna's camera, CCTV camera is on. Krishna is always watching me. Then if I'm conscious of that, I'll be remembering Krishna more. So therefore, gratitude is a very simple exercise. You could try and see your consciousness shift. There's a famous saying, quote, I had no shoes and I complained until I met a man who had no feet. So like this, there are many benefits of gratitude practices. And I agree and I admit that you can't be grateful for everything. I mean, I see you can't be grateful if you've been abused in life, for example. You can't say I'm very grateful for that. So although we can't be grateful for every situation, we can be grateful in every situation. We can be grateful in every situation. I mean, you can be grateful all the time. You may not be grateful for everything. You see, there's a difference. Even when I'm going through pain, I can be grateful for something else, but I can be grateful. And you will see how it makes a lot of difference. So therefore, this is quadrant 3, simple definition. It's an expansion and enlargement of the heart. When you're seeing abundance, when you're seeing benedictions everywhere, and you're seeing grace in life. How many of you have analyzed others with your mind? Okay, he's like this, he's like that. You've done that? You have analyzed others, judged others. How many times have you analyzed your own mind? In fact, I want to say something. Many times we think I have figured out my mind, but that's the mind talking. Mind has come through the back door. Mind is incorrigible. It's very slippery. We can't really, we don't have an aerial view towards our life. We say often, I'm not this body, I'm the soul. But we also need to tell ourselves, I'm not the mind. But our identity is so merged with the mind. So unless we come to a state of gratitude, appreciation, and enlargement of the heart, we will remain stuck in the mind space. And I use the word home state. Home is a place where you love to be. Nowadays, once I gave this presentation, a devotee told me, Prabhu, you can also say home state, you can put a stroke, and you can say heart space. Because not everybody has a very pleasant experience at home. So I use the word heart space also to mean a place where you feel safe. Now, I'll give you a few examples to make this point very clear. Now, for your body, in the external world, you have a home or you have a place where you find shelter. All of us have some place where we find shelter. We need exactly the same kind of shelter for our inner world. See, once I was driving from North Mumbai to our temple, and there was a traffic jam. It was during the COVID period. The COVID had just got over, lockdown had opened up, and there were no trains. The AC was not working in the car, and it was extremely sweaty, a lot of cars honking. It was a big, massive traffic jam. And by the time I reached temple, I was suffering like anything. I was choked up. And then as soon as I entered my room, I felt relief. Have you experienced this ever, like this, something like this? So this is a home or a home state or a space for your body. You need a place where you find shelter, right? Now, just like you have this world outside of you, there is a world inside. And you may be stuck because of some relationships, some problems. and you may feel it's a big traffic jam inside, you need to also rush to an area, to a state of being or an activity where you find similar sense of relief, shelter, succor, where you are just, this is it. This is it. This is where I need to be. I'll give a very graphic example. I'm sorry if I think all of you are very cultured people, but I have to tell you this. This is reality of life in Mumbai. One of my friends was staying in the slum area. Slums in Mumbai are, I can't describe the conditions there. And it was raining heavily and he needed help. It was a low-lying area. So, the toilets of all these small houses there, they all got flooded. And there was water everywhere. And the water from the commode came out. And it was all stool, urine, and it was all neck deep. And I could feel, it was like, and I had to help him out and we removed his things. And somehow it was many hours of exercise and we had to do all of that. And then finally, I had to go back to my house, which was in South Bombay. And my father was in a good government post that time. And we had some facilities there. And there were no buses available. So I had to walk for 2 hours with that feeling, that my body is filled with, I don't know how many people, stool, urine, it's all on my body. And I'm actually walking and every second was hellish for me. And then when I reached home, I rang the bell and my mom opened the door and I said, "Stay away from me." And then I shouted loudly what had happened to me. And then I ran to the bathroom, I put on the shower and I stood under the shower for I think 1 hour, I don't know. Maybe I took that soap and I kept rubbing my body. And after 1 hour I came out and I was so relieved, and it was raining, so my mom made hot tea and pakoras. And I was like, this is shelter, relief. Now, life also treats us with this kind of situations. Many of us, we get a lot of, you know what. And the only choice you have is the kind of toppings you want on it. But we get all of that, and we don't want it. We are misunderstood. We are accused of wrongdoings. I don't know if some of you have been accused. And it happens to even devotees sometimes. Your intentions are, you're judged for your intentions. All that happens. So basically, we also have a home in our inner world where I know that this is it. I don't have to go anywhere else now. My journey has ended. This is my home state. This is where I belong to. It is a place or a state of activity or a state of being which is, where you get shelter. In Sanskrit, Rupa Goswami calls this as Uddipan. Uddipan is a trigger point. There are some activities in Bhakti which I don't know if some of you are I know one devotee who is very much attracted to Kirtan. He can spend the whole day doing Kirtan. And I know another brahmachari in our temple, he just can't sit for more than 5 minutes in Kirtan. He becomes restless. But he can spend the whole day in the deity room. He'll keep dressing the deities. That is his home state. Everybody has a home state. And Rupa Goswami has given us 64 items of devotional service. 64 items. So what is a home state? Simple words. It is a place where you feel safe, where you feel shelter, where there is a sense of belonging. Sense of belonging? This is me. You are loved. And for me, journal is my companion. For you, it could be something else. Where it's not a means for something else. Some of us want external situations to be very peaceful, but that will never happen. Have you heard this story? The king organized a painting competition. The theme was peace. And the 2 paintings that were chosen for the final was, one painting had a very peaceful scenery, greenery, and a bird sitting on a branch of a tree. Another painting was, there was a thunderstorm and rains and cyclones, and a bird is sitting on the branch of a tree very peacefully. So which painting won the first prize? The second painting, because that was the reality of life, because there will be cyclones outside. You can't expect peace outside. So the best thing about ISKCON is we don't cheat. We don't tell people that you come to Hare Krishna and your external world will be very peaceful. We never say that. In Mumbai, in India, you will find many hoardings and many posters where godmen and sadhus, they advertise, come to our place, put on this ring and do this, all your problems would go away. We never say that. We always focus on your inner world, how you can find a home state. And that is our path. And you will see, I saw a 95-year-old devotee who was doing a lot of kirtan and special programs at his house. And I asked him, why was he doing all of this? He said, I'm just doing this to express gratitude to Krishna. I got so much in life. I met another lady, Usha Mataji. She would come for all our yatras. She has seen 3 of her children die because she is 95. Her children were 65, 70. And then I asked her that, Mataji, you are so enthusiastic in Krishna consciousness. And I could see her face was glowing. She was so happy. And she's always grateful. So she is living in a very abundant space. And then I asked her, Mataji, life must be, you must have seen many ups and downs. And then she immediately, she exclaimed, oh yes, only suffering. I saw 3 of my children die in front of me. But what to do, that's life. I'm grateful to Krishna. So I said, and then that time there was a very popular movie in India called Kabhi Kushi Kabhi Gum. That sometimes there is happiness, sometimes there is sadness. So I told her, yeah, Mataji, Kabhi Kushi Kabhi Gum. So she said, no, Kabhi Kushi, mostly gum. Mostly it is, sadness. But still you'll see that there are devotees like this who are in a home state. For them that shelter is there. So they're not affected by the external environment. Srila Prabhupada was once flying from Dallas to New Orleans in 1975. And suddenly the plane, because of bad turbulent weather, started shaking in midair. And it was so wild, so violent it was that the overhead bins opened up and all the luggage started falling and it became messy. And Prabhupada's servant was next to him and he saw Prabhupada he was equipoised throughout the entire thing. And the servant, in a state of panic, he grabbed Prabhupada. He thought something will happen to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was just, Hare Krishna, Hare. He didn't say a word. And people are screaming in the plane. This pastime is there in the Lilamrit. And after some time, the plane navigated through that. And then when they landed safely, all the passengers cheered, Hari Bol! No, they didn't say Hari Bol, but they were like very relieved and they were cheering, clapping. And again, Upendra Prabhu, I think he was a servant, he looked at Srila Prabhupada and Srila Prabhupada was again, no expression. He was completely connected with Krishna. So then he thought, Srila Prabhupada must say something. I mean, this is such a big event that has happened. A major catastrophe has been averted. So I'm sure Srila Prabhupada has some comment to make. I'm sure he has to say something. So he was waiting. And then when everybody started coming out of the plane, Srila Prabhupada finally spoke up. He looked at his servant and said, so how far is the temple from the airport? He was like, what? That's all. Prabhupada had no other comment to make. So he was not in this world. He may be dealing with the situations of this world. But we have examples of people who are fixed in their home state, who are absorbed in remembrance of Krishna. So therefore, I'm still on the what point, that Srila Prabhupada was not focusing so much on peace of mind. He would always speak about connecting with Krishna. And great saints who are willing to suffer. Kunti Maharani says, I'm willing to go through suffering again and again. That is testimony of this. That if we expand our heart, we'll see that we are in quadrant. We are happy being with Krishna, although our life around us may be just falling down like a pack of cards, just crumbling. So many devotees I know who after coming to Krishna consciousness, they saw their relationships turn bad, so much suffering. And sometimes devotees are not parents and they don't approve of what you are doing. I don't know if I'm sure it's the same principle everywhere, right? It's not easy. Srila Prabhupada, he had 8 children. And 3 of them died during childbirth. And if you read our Joshua Green, Yogeshwar Prabhu's book, I had tears in my eyes when I read that entire section where he writes about Srila Prabhupada. For a father, his children, he would want his children to, especially when he's old, he would expect his children to love him. And out of these 5 surviving children, only the youngest one was connected with Srila Prabhupada. All of them rejected Srila Prabhupada. And the second one, Mathura Mohan, I think, he fell in love with a girl. He wanted to marry her, and the girl's parents objected, and some things like this happened. And then he went mad. He started roaming around in the Kolkata streets like a street urchin, a beggar, picking up things from the garbage can. And then Srila Prabhupada, as a grahastha, he got him treated in the most expensive, most prestigious hospital there, and they have a special British wing. So there he got him treated with psychiatric help from the best doctors. This is all written in Yogeshwar Prabhu's book, all the details. And for some time that treatment seemed to work. And then again that boy disappeared. And the other children, they rejected Srila Prabhupada. In fact, one of his daughters, she didn't get married at all. She was so hurt with her father, choosing Krishna over family. So, life is not easy for anyone. Pandavas, Draupadi saw her own children get killed. Pandavas, Bhishma Pitama says, when Bhishma Pitama is bewildered, he says, Muyanti Kavayopi, even great philosophers can't understand why devotees have to go through suffering. So none of us will be spared, but if we have a home state, if we have a place where we find shelter, then we will be safe and we will be able to contribute to others' well-being as well. In Hindi we have a saying, Dil bada ho, to dost bante hain. If you have a big heart, you'll be able to influence more and more people. And Dil bada ho, to dost bante hain. Dimag akkal badi ho, to dushman. If you're only living in the head space, you'll only make enemies. So therefore, and there are examples, unlimited examples. Gujarat earthquake, 2001. How many of you are aware of this? This was a very massive earthquake. Many people I know lost many of their family members. And during that time, we saw on TV some of the Swaminarayan followers and some devotees, pious people. They would be lamenting, they would be crying because they lost everything, but they would still be chanting. The cameras were shooting, because it's spontaneous, you can't hide those things. And there was a sense of peace in that chanting. Indradumna Maharaj writes about tsunami. Do you know this happened in 2005? Indradumna Maharaj was one of the first ones to reach there. And the government officials told him that we have no dearth of clothes and relief. Can you do something to give them something more than simply, the basic things? So then Maharaj did kirtan for hours, every day. And at the end of it, when he was leaving the village, all the villagers would surround him and insist that he doesn't leave. He was helping them enter a space beyond their day-to-day suffering. So there are many such people, and who have been influenced by the holy names, who have got that shelter. Some of you are very great kirtaniyas here. I'm sure you love kirtan. Some of you may not be having so much attraction for kirtan, fine, but there are other things. When I give lectures to youth, and yesterday we were having this debate, I was remembering this college preaching I did for many years, where we speak about material world is dukkhalayam, ashashvatam, a place of suffering. And all the boys, they challenge these kind of statements. No, this place is a great place, like yesterday we were saying, we can be happy here. These are very common arguments I've seen in youth preaching. And it takes a lot of energy to convince them and, logically argue. But when I started doing congregation preaching, I was so amazed. And first time I said, this world is a place of suffering, and everybody was, yeah. I was like, wow. So easily they accept. Because they are dealing with the material energy, they are, day-to-day basis, they are struggling. Because when we are young, we think I'm invincible. I can get all the answers I want. I can have a lot of control over my life. But it's not like that. उड़ा देती हैं नींदें कुछ जिम्मेदारियां घर की. In Hindi they say that some responsibilities of our lives, they throw away our sleep at night. And then the second line says, not all those who remain awake at night are lovers. So it's very tough life. And when we are young, we think I'll always be happy. But life is not like that. We think I'll have I'll have a great life, but a lot of disappointments come. So therefore, we need a shelter, we need sacred space. I know some of you may say, okay, Prabhu, I have a great home state in Netflix. I can watch movies for 6 hours. That's a great space to be in. Now, I'm right now talking about a non-electronic world. We'll come back to this later, but you can't say that, my home state is movies. Why? Because movies are at best painkillers. They give some relief, but they just numb the pain. I'm not against, see, we all need painkillers. When you're in a lot of pain, when you feel lonely, you may need some painkillers. But if you think painkillers are medicine, then you're making a big mistake. So some of us need painkillers, so I'm not against it. I'm just saying we can't think that's everything. And we are right now talking about non-electronic world. We are talking about either spiritual or quasi-spiritual, like nature walks, poetry, journaling, reading books, not watching the movie on the screen. So in a non-electronic world, you will find your home state. I'll just take a few more minutes, just 5 more minutes, Prabhu. See, I'll give a simple principle. Right now, your consciousness is at level 5. Let's just give a number for it. Your consciousness is at level 5, and the problems in your life is at level maybe 2 or 3. So you are above your problems. That's why you are stable. That's why you are walking around. That's why you're not freaking out. You're not going crazy. Why? Because your problems are at a level lower than your state of consciousness. But you know something? Life is so uncertain. Any moment, one phone call from someone you love, or one message, or one news, or one medical test, something comes up, suddenly the situation becomes higher than your level of consciousness. So what we are proposing when we say, live in a home state, we are saying, make a cushion, keep a big gap between your state of consciousness and the problems in your life. So if you're at level 5, come to 8 or 9. And then even if there is a big turbulence, you will be above your problems. So a home state is what we are talking about. In military camps, in Mumbai, there is a military base. So they have put a big hoarding there. Again, the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. So now you are young. Once you enter middle age, now when you are young in college, you have exams once in 6 months, you have a semester exam. But once you get married and you have family, you have exams every day. It's a challenge. Every day is a new challenge. So therefore, it's important that devotees spend time in their home state. And this was one very famous quote I loved it very much. All of you must be knowing this. Viktor Frankl, he wrote this book, Man's Search for Meaning. He says, between every stimulus and our response to it, there is a space, and in that space lies our freedom. In that freedom is the secret of our growth, success, and happiness. So when we live in our home state, the gap between what happens to us and our response increases. If you slap someone, a small child, the child immediately cries because there is no gap between the stimulus and the response. But if you are slapped, before you react, you have some space. You are able to understand whether it was a friendly tap, whether it was sarcastic, whether it was out of envy. So we need to increase that space, and that happens when we live in our home state. And I will end with this. I rushed to that because I remember I spoke about Harry Potter 2 days ago. So there is another world, completely another world inside of us. Just like we have rules here, there are rules for the inner world. And there are 3 places where you could be living. This is I want to end with this chart. And tomorrow we'll discuss about how we can actually live in the third. Now first look at the first vertical column on your left, the pleasure seeker. So many of us are pleasure seekers. We may be externally in a temple atmosphere, but we may be living in the world of our body and senses. And a person who is a pleasure seeker, his philosophy of life is meant for sense gratification. There are some of us who we are not interested in so much pleasure, or we are tired of pleasure. We are looking for clarity. We want to solve problems. We are problem solvers. We live in the world of mind, intelligence, and ego. And such a person's philosophy is life is all of struggle. And sometimes we seek peace, we seek shelter. So this is actually from Taittiriya Upanishad. I just gave it English terminology. The first column you see, pleasure seeker, that's Annamaya Kosha. Many, when a child is born, the child's understanding of reality is based on the taste. Anything the child sees, child puts it in the mouth. So many of us, we have grown up, but we still think of pleasure. We are constantly thinking of pleasure. How can I be happy? How can I get some enjoyment? And there are some of us, at some times, we live in the space of problem solving, constantly looking at the gaps in our life. So, and both are unsustainable. I'll just end with 2 examples and then we'll close for the day. It's 10:15. I'm sorry. See, when I joined the ashram, we used to have breakfast at 9 in the morning. And nowadays we have a lot of systems. You get training in the base and then you join. But during those days we didn't have training. So I would get up at home in the morning at 7:30 and 9 o'clock I would be hungry. But when I joined the temple, we had to get up at 3:30, 4. So I would be hungry at 5:30. But the breakfast was at 9. So then I would be thinking of food. So I sat for japa one day, and the next to me was the kitchen in charge, was also chanting. So I asked him, Prabhu, what's there for breakfast today? So he got irritated with me and very sarcastically, at that time I didn't realize he was being sarcastic. He just said, today we have samosas, jalebis, and something like that. Something very exciting. So I said, wow. Then I was chanting and I was thinking all the time about samosas and jalebis, and I was chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So after the chanting session, one other devotee, he came up to me and he said, Prabhu, you are chanting so nicely. You are so absorbed in Krishna, and he appreciated my chanting so much. And then I felt so guilty. I thought, this person is thinking I'm so advanced, but all the time I was thinking of food. So the point I'm making is, externally you may be anywhere. We are talking about the world of the wizards, the inner world, the internal world. In your inner world, where are you right now? Are you a pleasure seeker right now? Are you a problem solver? Or are you experiencing shelter? So if you are a pleasure seeker, you are thinking of how the body and senses could get pleasure. Another example, we had during our annual Brahmachari annual drama festival in our congregation, Brahmacharis decided to do a drama. And there was one brahmachari who was very shy, but we insisted that he does one role. And he had one dialogue. He comes with a palanquin, and his dialogue was, who is Yamuna? The king has sent a palanquin for you. That was the only dialogue he had. But he was so nervous, we made him practice for almost a month. And every day he would practice and he would say, no, I won't do it. And then somehow he was convinced, and the day before the drama, he practiced a lot. And then as usual, we have to get up in the morning, attend Mangalarati and chant with devotees. So we were all chanting. His Holiness Radhana Swami Maharaj was there with us. And we were chanting Hare. And temple hall was quiet. Everybody is absorbed in Krishna. And suddenly we hear this booming voice. Who is Yamuna? The king has sent a palanquin. And this brahmachari was chanting. And it just came out of his mouth. Who is Yamuna? And then he realized what's happening. So in which space was he living? The problem solver. He was a problem solver, although he was externally in a temple, sacred temple space. So we all live in our inner world, we all live either as a pleasure seeker, as a problem solver, or we are living in a shelter space. There are some people who may be in the middle of a battlefield, and they may be completely equipoised, because they may be connected to divine. And how do we do that? Tomorrow we will discuss. I'll stop here. But I've shared some food for thought. So you have some time to find out what is your home state. I'll tell you about mine. I have a basket of activities. So I have a list of 15 things. This is I've realized over the last few years or whatever. I have these 15 things. I just see that. I just see that chart every day morning. Okay, and something inspires me. I make a list. Today's 3 most important tasks. I have to do these 3 or 4 things. I know that these 15 is where I find shelter. Because responsibilities are there, other things are there, but I have to ensure that I do at least some of this every day. Sometime every day in the shelter space. That's it. Sometime. It could be DT worship, it could be anything. Find out what it is. Again, we're not talking about the electronic world, and why, we'll discuss that tomorrow. Because electronic world is not a reality, it's a virtual world, it's not the real world. There's a difference between virtual world, real world, and the eternal world. All that we'll keep it for tomorrow. Hare Krishna. I'm really sorry I went over time. Hari Bol.